So what's going on with the Xiegu G106? It's not a bad radio, but I also wouldn't say it's a good radio. It's somewhere in the middle there, and at a price point that puts it about $400, it may not be an option for all of you, but some of you are looking at this radio or were looking at this radio. This radio has come under a lot of fire recently online. And I got to admit, some of it may be, tangentially at least, related to me or the Postal Service. So let's get started, and I'll see what I can do to explain it. Hopefully this isn't going to be too long of a video. By the way, I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. Thanks so much for clicking on the ham radio crash course. But this is my third G106 radio. I was sent one of these back in June earlier this year, about the same time I was going to Las Vegas for my sister-in-law's wedding. When I arrived there, some of you may know from my live streams and some of my social media postings that this thing was dead. Now, it worked when I was at home, but once I took it out at Las Vegas to go do a POTA, I could hear a part loose inside. It turned out that it was a Toroid. And after that happened, I didn't want to run it anymore out of fear that I would damage the radio that Xiegu, or I should say Radioddity, had lent to me. So it sat in the hotel room, and I ended up buying that Yaesu FT818, which led to that whole video series, which you guys hopefully enjoyed. But anyway, I ended up going home, and I sent this back to Radioddity, and then they sent me another. Now, I should say the first radio I got was what they called a prototype. And then the radio that followed, that came along with it, was a pre-production radio. But I was promised that the firmware that was on that radio was the same that was going to be on the release radio that you all now see on the Radioddity website. So a lot of the video that you're going to see today on the workbench is from that second radio that was sent to me. And at the time that I was playing around with it, in around the July timeframe, I thought it was fine. It's a inexpensive radio. It's cheaper than that of a G90. It doesn't have the same features as the G90, but it's also much smaller. It's a more portable radio. Not sure how to put it into any other perspective than that, and instead of flavoring it with some of my own personal opinions, we're probably just going to go to the desktop. But I will make a couple more observations since we're here and I'm trying to unravel this a bit. That second radio went in a box and was shipped to Mike K at MRD, and you have likely seen the video that he produced and put out, so you probably maybe have some preconceived notions about the actual functionality of this radio. I believe, since I had a functioning radio in the second model that I shipped to Mike, it worked fine. The audio quality was okay. I was able to get it to work on digital modes using the DE19 interface. So it's possible, entirely possible, that somewhere along the route to Mike, it got damaged in shipping. And I used the same boxes, the manufacturer's box, and as well as the cardboard box that Radioddity shipped it to me. But maybe something happened. So unfortunately, the radio that Mike maybe got could have been damaged. I don't know. This is all an assumption on my part. All I know is that I didn't have the problems that he experienced, as you will see shortly. With that said, they sent me a third one because of the videos that have come out on trying to, I guess, take a look at it and see if it was a mistake on my part or if it was actually a damaged radio or whatnot. I will say at the time of recording this, which is September 1st, this is a actual release version of the radio running whatever the current released firmware is. There was a firmware drop recently that added AM transmission modes onto this, as well as a couple of other changes. This is still a bare bones radio. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I think maybe it got hit a little hard with the results of the radios that went out to the folks that got them on YouTube. Now, I'm not saying that those folks are wrong. Far from it, and not in the least. What I am saying is that their radios might have been with issue. They might have had some problems. I will say, though, that this isn't the best news for Xiegu's quality control then, because if you consider my first radio, it really just sat in a backpack and it shed a Toroid. I can kind of chop that up to being a prototype. The pre-production second gen model that I was able to use just fine, which you'll see shortly here in this video, but Mike had problems with, leads me to believe that, maybe there was some kind of quality control issue. Now, this being my third one, works fine. I'm actually using this on a live stream. I've been using this on digital modes, and I have used this on single sideband, so it works as promised. Is it the highest quality? Is the signal quality fantastic? I'll let you be the judge, but realistically, no. It is that of a $370 radio. When you factor in the digital interface, it's like $320. And if you get that DE19, it bumps the price up a little bit. So I'm rambling all over the place. I'll come back to you at the end with my thoughts, but let's go to the workbench and show you a little bit about how this radio functions and some of its features. All right, let's take a peek around this G106 HF transceiver, part of the G Core, which if you have a G90, it says G Core on the side, and this is obviously a Xiegu radio. All right, very simple. Let me just say that right up front. Very straightforward radio. There's a couple of documents. We'll put that on the side right now. Doesn't come with a lot either. It doesn't need a lot. It comes with a power lead, unterminated. Comes with a microphone that has a plug there in the bottom so you can attach earbuds if you're so inclined to do so. And then the radio. Very simple box. Everything's simple, simple, simple. You're going to be noticing a trend when I say simple throughout the remainder of this video for sure. It is a top fire speaker coming out of the top of the case. The power button, hold down power button. You have controls for preamp and mode, changing the mode of operation, and band buttons to switch through the bands of operation. It is a very simple face as well. It has a metal dial that is slightly detented, and has metal protective kind of limbs on the side here that keep from being sheared off by something. If you came at it at an angle, won't shear it off. Volume button's on the top, and if you push this button, it actually switches from the top speaker to the hand mic speaker. This works pretty well. Around back, more simplicity. This will run off of 9 volts up to 16 volts. Pretty straightforward. This is the AC connection and COM connection. You can do digital mode with this, indeed. Key, ground, antenna. Boom, that's it. That's all there is to it. It is very simple, and you can see it in the palm of my hands here. Not very big. Let's get it powered up and on an
Life
antenna.
expectancy of a Doug fir is, 80 years or so. If it gets to 80 years and it isn't sick yet, that's pretty unusual.
All right, so we're looking at the G106. There are a couple of top controls in the form of buttons. There are face controls as well. Dead simple to operate. Let me give you a little bit of volume here. This is the external speaker. If I push this dial in, we're now on the handheld mic here for volume, and let's listen to that.
Ponderosa pine. Ponderosa pine does not grow well in the shade, and so if you just cut everything down and let it come back on its own, the Douglas fir,
It sounds
which
pretty
will
good.
grow in the shade, it will outgrow.
Here's the body
Ponderosa
speaker again.
pine. So the general feeling is that given enough time,
I gotta say, I'm actually a fan of just using this speaker mic, to be honest. It sounds really good.
back to the way it originally was, where it was probably more Ponderosa pine.
All right, so if you push the band and mode buttons on the top here, you just can slide through our bands. Now, obviously, some of these are shortwave. This is the top end. It tops out at 10 meters. It will also transmit on 80 meters. There we go. And you can see it will transmit. Not good match right now, though, on 80 meters. And there's your 10 meters as well. So kind of an interesting design. It uses the band switch for both the shortwave broadcast stations and the amateur radio stations. So you just, keep tapping until you find the band you're looking for. There you go. There's 15, 19, 17, and 20. And we're right back at the QSO that's been going on. Mic connector is up front. if you push in the center dial, which is it's actually a big, heavy metal dial. It feels good. It's almost like, it looks like magnesium, but I'm assuming it's aluminum. Anyway, if I push in on it, now it brings up a little menu control down here that you can go through. Oh, you got to be quick. You got to go through your VFO or memory, A and B channel, which you can see is set to 40 meters right there, 7.50. So MW, memory write, MC, memory delete. Didn't expect that, did you? If you push it in and then you click one click over, it goes to the second page, which is your CW filter, CW tone. CWR is your dot to dash ratio, which in this case is set to 3.0, and your QSK, which you can turn on and off. On page 3, you have automatic key rate, key mode, iambic, and startup information settings. Let's click on that one real fast. So this is where you can set your call sign. So we're going to set the speed to 15 for my slow code. We're going to go KM, which is manual, or auto L, auto R, or manual. In this case, if we're straight key, we'll just leave it like that. And in iambic will be mode B or mode A. I believe I'm usually mode A. And there you go. SPL is pilot frequency mode, which I don't know what that means. And then you have display mode, which you can change the display to scope plus S meter, just the scope, big scope, scope plus S. Let's just do scope for a second so you can see what that looks like. Get out of the page. So there's the scope with the AB frequency. Gives a little bit bigger size. If we do that again, we go to display, big scope, save, exit out of there. Huge scope now. So now you got a big open view of the world. Ooh, hey, look at all the signals there. If you tap the power button on top, you turn off the backlight, which can save power. Let's go back to display, go to scope plus S, which is what I left it in. And there's your S meter on top. Now, the mode button on top, if we click it, it'll cycle through different modes like CW, AM, lower sideband, and upper sideband. If we hold it down, that's where we activate the preamp. So we've turned off the preamp. Preamp was on by default, it looks like. All right, pretty straightforward. Set it into 40 meters. It's mode CW. I did have to tell the radio that my KM or key manual type or key mode was automatic L. L is the dits on the left, even though I did have iambic B selected. So you still have to do that. Regardless, I had to recycle the power when I plugged the key in for the first time. Now, you can see we have... Oh. It's shifting frequency. What the... Ah. Alright, so that pilot frequency is a shift frequency. Let's get on a dummy load here. Non-QSK activated. Let's turn on QSK. Okay. It is fast in unkeying the relay. There is no control for setting power output on this. It's 5 watts out. Basically, when you give it 13.8 volts, that's what it throws out the back end. At least that's what's advertised. We will check that, which I find, yeah, okay, here nor there. The other thing Radio Audio sent me was the Xiegu DE19 expansion card, which really it's the USB sound interface. And here's what it is. It's a little cool little box. So they got the Civ control, you got your PA and your AAC for control, and a USB-C out. So this will allow you to do digital modes with your G106 right here. And you can see if we go to the back, the ACC line will line up there for ACC. And then you have this kind of dual audio Civ control that would go right in there. So let's take a look at that. I found the data configuration for the G106 to be very straightforward. You plug the CI5 connector, the audio cable into the back of the comms port. The ACC port is the 9-pin mini DIN. Connection to WSJTX is also very straightforward. Make sure that you are selecting all the settings I'm showing right now. This worked exactly every time I did it on whichever computer I tried it on, and I did try it on like 3 or 4 now, including the Genkopotamus. This is also the JS8 configuration, so just follow these. If you need to pause, go ahead and pause. I did a live stream this last weekend where I went into a bit greater detail on getting this up and running on JS8 call, so you can always go look at that, and that will give you some more details as well. Power output test. We got a straight key, so we're going to do a just straight carrier tone from the radio to a power meter. This is being fed by a power supply putting out 13.8 volts and about 6 watts output on 20 meters. Let's slide down the bands. 40 meters, 6 watts output. 80 meters, 6 watts output. 10 meters, 6 watts. Looks like 8 watts, a little over 8 watts on 15, and 5.5 watts on 17. Similar test, we've got a battery connected to a power meter. Same deal, we're going to show the output of power, but we're going to see the draw in amps. On receive right now, it's on. We're at 0.33 amps, so here's the key. 6 watts output, and it's taking 1.57 amps to achieve that. This is my G90, right? It's a big chungus, and yeah, it's got the finger cutter tray on the bottom, and so that does add, this whole section here is actually that digital fan tray. Generally, it's recommended if you're going to do digital modes, and it adds, you know, the little kickstand things out the back. The G90 is kind of like the AK-47 of ham radios, at least out today. It's a real blocky boy. It's got a real tiny screen on it, as you can see there, and you've seen tons of videos on this. This radio is everywhere. $450-ish. I know the prices have changed a lot, so I'm not gonna get too hard on quoting myself on it. But here's the 106 next to it, and you can see that they're quite small in comparison. The 106 is not nearly as feature-rich of the G90, and let's kind of say feature-rich G90. Those are usually mutually exclusive. But the 106 is... It's the bare bones Xiegu. It's a small, simple radio. It has no internal anything. You provide power source. You provide an antenna tuner if you need one, and your antenna. It has a speaker mic, which you saw in the video, and it doesn't have a headphone jack, which is kind of crazy. It does have a key in the back, and then obviously it has those COM ports. I feel that generally this radio is aimed at folks who want a really inexpensive entry point into digital modes. It gets a basically 10 watts output on the bands that I tested on my antenna that I have here at the house, and it generally does just fine on digital modes. It's not the best, and it's not certainly the worst, and at the price point of $388 when you pack in that digital interface, and yes, you do need it for the DIN connector and the COM port here in the back, it's not bad. It's kind of tough for me to make a video like this when there's a ton of videos that have come out to say kind of not great things about the radio. I think I will make the cheater's easy way out of this and say it's a very inexpensive radio, and to have filet mignon taste when you're putting tube steak prices down on an HF radio is probably not reasonable. Now, this is not a shot at Mike at all. You know, he and I are actually good friends. At least I feel we're good friends. Maybe not after this video. You tell me, Mike. But I think Mike maybe still got maybe a bad radio. And I promise I didn't kick the box or anything like that when I shipped it off to him. But I felt bad that he had such a bad experience with the radio because that was not my experience. So anyway, I hope this clears some things up. I'll leave it to you on the would I buy it. I've long said that I probably wouldn't buy a G90 and I'd go straight for a 7300 or a Yaesu FT891 as a POTA radio or a shack radio for a beginner. If you absolutely had only $500 to spend or in and around that price point, where would I put these two? The G90 has the internal tuner. It has a color waterfall screen. It has a headphone jack and a speaker port that's not attached to the handheld mic. It's tough. It really is tough. I will say, truth be told, it was actually easier getting this on digital modes than it is to get the G90 in, because you have to switch between the head unit and the inputs and all that stuff. And this is simple. You just put it in USB digi mode, and that's all there is to it. It's very simple. Yeah. So that's gosh, it's really tough, because you're looking at $100 difference, maybe a little bit more than $100 to step up from the 106 to the G90. And does that provide you much more than the 25 watts? Arguably, yeah. There's some creature comfort, some better experiences to be had in that with the feature set. So maybe they both have a place. This is definitely for people that maybe want to dabble in HF radio. They don't want to fully commit. I just hope that they don't have a bad experience, or we're expecting more than it really is for the cost. This is not one of those radios where the functionality greatly outshines the price point. I don't know that those exist right now in the amateur radio market. I think you generally get what you pay for right now in amateur radio. So maybe I'll leave you with that. There's one thing I almost forgot. The little nubs, the knurling, if you will, on the volume control and the VFO, also the menu control, did change between the three models I've had. The first two were identical, and this one has more aggressive knurling to it. Neither good nor bad. It's just a slightly different thing. So I'll show a picture next to this here. So there's the knurling. You can probably see that. And here's the picture of what the knurling looked like before. It was less aggressive before, so that may be changed for some reason. Don't know, but anyway. Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. I have other videos on reviews I've done for radios, including that FT818, kind of a competitor to this guy at not too much more of a price, and tons of G90 videos. So I've put them together in a little list that you can go check out. Links are in the description and in the cards for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. See ya. You may want to turn that off, because it's arbitrarily... What is that? Fuzz.